At a family Christmas toast, my aunt giggled. Bless her heart, she thinks effort alone will make her a legend. I smiled through the sting. Over 15 years, I gained quiet power over every major family institution. When scandal finally struck, I fed the press every skeleton hidden in our closets. Overnight, our charitable foundations were dismantled, buildings were renamed, trusts were seized, and the family's social standing collapsed forever. Their descendants still changed their surnames to avoid the shame. I still remember the sting of her voice, that icy, smug laugh that followed me for years. It was Christmas Eve at my grandparents' estate in Charleston. We were all gathered in the drawing room, walls lined with oil portraits of ancestors, every lamp glowing with a soft gold warmth, like it was supposed to make us forget how rotten things were underneath. I was standing near the fireplace, holding a cheap red wine someone handed me. Jeanette stood front and center, dressed like a magazine ad, her diamonds loud and heavy, her face pulled too tight to show any real emotion. She held her glass high and said, "To legacies built with blood, sweat, and brilliance. And to our sweet little cousin who still thinks effort alone will make her a legend." Then came that cruel giggle. They laughed. Not loud but enough. Even my mom smiled and gave a weird little shake of her head, like she wasn't sure if it was okay to laugh or not. I stood there and smiled. I didn't say anything. I just let it land. It wasn't new. I'd always been the outlier. Not rich enough, not successful enough, not polished or powerful, or politically connected like the rest of them. I was 23, trying to build a nonprofit from scratch. It wasn't glamorous. Rural literacy programs didn't get you into country clubs. They thought I was a fool. They thought I was soft. But that night, while they passed around truffle-stuffed shrimp and made jokes about real work, something clicked in me. I didn't want to be part of the family legacy anymore. I wanted to end it. I never fought back directly. That would have been stupid. You don't yell at a snake. You let it slither where it wants. And then you shut the lid when it's not looking. I stayed close. I volunteered for things no one wanted to do, taking notes at board meetings, drafting annual letters for the foundations, doing donor research, handling RSVPs for family events. They loved that. They thought I was a helper. They thought I had accepted my role as the quiet little nobody in the background. They gave me access to everything. Jeanette especially loved to delegate. Her foundation emails were always a mess. She'd forward me confidential tax documents without blinking. She'd even CC me on emails meant to be secret. I saved all of it. Every file. Every line of text that hinted at fraud or deception or cruelty. I had USB drives hidden in safe deposit boxes in different states. I had cloud backups on servers tied to dummy accounts. I even offered to digitize old records for preservation. They handed me full boxes of family legal papers. Wills. Trusts. Correspondence going back decades. I didn't just scan them, I read every word. There were things in there no one should have kept in writing. The Ravenscrofts had made their name through charity. 3 generations of social capital built through philanthropic work, always backed by a well-greased legal team and crooked accountants. I found letters from a young woman in the 90s threatening to go public about my uncle. I found the hush money records from when a summer intern fell down the stairs at a fundraiser. I found the signatures of church leaders who'd rubber-stamped false donation receipts for tax write-offs. And worse, I found who signed the paperwork when a cousin's drug habit got pinned on a black groundskeeper, who went to jail for 2 years. We were raised to believe it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't. My cousin Remy was the golden boy. Yale law. Corporate shark. Perfect hair. He married a senator's daughter and cheated on her within 6 months. When she left him, he tried to strip her of custody out of spite. She wasn't stupid. She had receipts. She leaked them to a small local paper, mostly emails showing how Remy used family foundation funds as slush money. The article was supposed to be a hit piece on him alone. That's when I stepped in. Under fake names and encrypted emails, I sent the journalist a trove of data. Not just about Remy, about all of them. I made sure each piece was independently verifiable. Tax forms. Photos. Audio clips. Lawsuits we'd quietly settled. I watched from the sidelines as they tried to plug the holes. It was like watching someone try to hold back a flood with paper towels. The story exploded. The news spread across South Carolina, then hit national outlets. The IRS opened an investigation. Several nonprofits tied to the family were ordered to halt operations. Jeanette was subpoenaed. The FBI showed up at my cousin Liam's office. The family's lawyer had a stroke, not a joke. An actual stroke 2 days after the second wave of articles hit. Then came the dominoes. The Children's Hospital removed my grandfather's name. The museum refunded a multi-million-dollar donation and changed its gala theme. The university stripped 2 endowed chairs named after my great-uncle. The city council publicly revoked the honorary Ravenscroft Day. People scrambled to protect themselves. Some tried to claim ignorance. Others tried to make side deals, leaking dirt on each other in exchange for lighter treatment. Jeanette went on local TV and sobbed about cancel culture and how we were a proud family misunderstood by modern standards. It didn't work. Protesters showed up outside her home. The country club revoked her membership. Her housekeeper quit and posted screenshots of Jeanette's racist texts. Cousins changed their surnames. One moved out of state entirely. A few hired PR firms. None of it worked. I never came forward. Never claimed credit. They still don't know it was me. First they were just stunned. Speechless. Then the panic turned to anger. I watched it all from the inside. Emails flying, emergency family calls scheduled, lawyers being looped in. There was a big Zoom call with everyone from the inner circle: Jeanette, Remy, my mother, a few lesser-known cousins who ran the other foundations. The screen was filled with tight jaws and forced calm. "We believe this was a coordinated attack," Jeanette said, her voice trembling with rage. "Someone has weaponized our records. They called in a private investigator. That got a bit scary. I won't lie. For a few weeks I thought they might figure it out. I used encrypted browsers, burner accounts, double VPNs. I wiped every trace of activity from my real devices. But one wrong step and they'd know it was me. Still, they never looked twice in my direction. Why would they? I was invisible. I was the quiet little cousin who folded chairs after fundraisers and dropped off soup when Jeanette had surgery. I played my part perfectly. But what they did next made me realize they hadn't learned a damn thing. Remy hired a PR firm known for reputation rehab. He tried to get a spot on a conservative news channel, hoping to spin himself as a victim of a political smear. They laughed him off the set. Clips of his interview went viral, especially the part where he claimed, "Our foundations fed millions of underprivileged kids." The numbers didn't even match their own tax records. Jeanette tried to sue 3 journalists for defamation. The suits were tossed out immediately. Worse, new allegations surfaced. I hadn't even needed to leak everything. Once the door cracked open, people started crawling out of the woodwork. Former interns, staff, board members who'd been silenced or pushed out. Even an old friend of my mother's came forward, said she'd been forced out of a housing program Jeanette ran, just because she refused to falsify a donation. For every lie they tried to push, 5 more truths came out. It was a landslide now. The city's Historical Preservation Society launched a review of all sites named after my family. A judge ordered an audit of every foundation still tied to our name. Our longtime accountant took a plea deal to save herself and turned over 20 years of fraudulent filings. That was the most satisfying part. They began blaming each other. First quietly, then publicly. Remy accused Jeanette of leading a culture of fraud. Jeanette told a reporter that Remy's generation lacked the subtlety and respect our reputation depended on. My mother tried to stay neutral, but I saw her squirm during a PBS interview where they asked if she was aware of the embezzlement. She gave the worst answer possible. "I didn't know everything, but I trusted my family." The shame didn't just settle in. It drowned them. By now, 3 cousins had filed for bankruptcy. One aunt fled to Naples and was living off a private pension fund that the IRS was circling like a shark. The family compound, 14 acres on the edge of Charleston, once a staple of holiday parties and photo shoots, was put on the market in a quiet sale. No one was buying. Too radioactive. One cousin, Elise, came for me. I should have seen it coming. Elise had always been clever in a petty, bitter way. She'd been the closest to me growing up. We used to play together during summers, stay up whispering at sleepovers. But something broke in her when her dad's business collapsed in the fallout. She lost everything. And she figured out that I hadn't. She didn't have proof, just suspicion. She sent me a message out of the blue, months after the worst headlines had died down. You always acted like you were above it all. Funny how everything crumbled the second you stopped showing up. I ignored it at first. Then she showed up at my nonprofit's office. Uninvited. She walked in like she was just checking in. But her eyes said something else. You've done well for yourself, she said, scanning the bookshelves, the neat little reception desk. I mean, considering how much blood was spilled. I played dumb, smiled politely, offered her coffee, but I started locking the office doors after that. I wasn't afraid she'd out me. No one would believe her, she had no evidence, and she wasn't exactly stable these days. But her presence rattled me. It reminded me that even when you win, someone always survives. And sometimes they come back. I should have known Elise wouldn't just let it go. A few weeks after she showed up at my office, strange things started happening. First, someone filed a bogus complaint against my nonprofit, said we were misusing grant money. It didn't go anywhere, because we were clean. I ran that place with surgical precision, but the timing wasn't a coincidence. Then I got an email from a freelance journalist who said someone was shopping around a story about me that I'd destroyed my family for money and had faked credentials to get grant funding. Total lies, but dangerous ones. The journalist didn't buy it. They even warned me. You've pissed someone off. Bad. It was Elise. I didn't have hard proof, but the style was hers. Always indirect. Always sneaky. She wanted to ruin me the same way I'd helped ruin them. So I made a call. I'd kept every chat log, every email, every social media post where Elise had spewed bile about the family long before the scandal ever broke. She used to vent to me all the time. She'd raged about Jeanette, about Remy, about how they think money erases everything. I forwarded a small batch of those old messages to a different journalist. Just enough to paint Elise as a disgruntled insider with her own axe to grind. I didn't say much. I let the messages speak. The journalist didn't write a full article, but they tweeted a screenshot, tagged Elise by name. She deactivated her accounts the next day. It had been over a year since the worst of the fallout. I hadn't spoken to my mother in months. We'd exchanged a few awkward texts during the scandal, but she'd kept her distance as always. She never liked conflict. She liked looking polished above the mess. But she called me out of the blue. I almost didn't answer. When I did, her voice cracked. They're saying it was you. There was a long silence. I waited. I told them it couldn't be, she continued. But was it? I didn't lie. But I didn't confess either. Why would I do something like that, Mom? I said calmly. I'm not one of you, remember? She started to cry. I think deep down she knew. I think she'd always known I was smarter than they gave me credit for. She just never thought I'd turn the coldness they taught me into something useful. She begged me to stop. Said the family had paid enough. That everyone was suffering. That children are involved. I let her talk. Then I said, you all had 50 years to fix this. You didn't. You looked the other way while people got hurt. She went quiet. We haven't spoken since. Here's the thing I didn't expect. In tearing down my family, I got sloppy in one place. Just one. Years ago, when I was helping digitize Jeanette's files, I copied a few grant documents that technically weren't supposed to leave the foundation servers. I did it for insurance. Proof. In case I needed to show how deep it all went. One of those files, a scanned ledger, had donor bank account numbers. I never used them. Never shared them. But I had them. And someone knew. I got a certified letter from a lawyer representing one of the donors. A wealthy Atlanta businessman who'd made a six-figure donation under the table. His name had surfaced in the leaks. Quietly, and with deniability until someone leaked that specific document. It hadn't been me. That's when I realized someone else had access to my archives. Someone I'd trusted once. It was my ex, of course it was. We dated for 4 years. He'd been around during my early nonprofit days, back when I was still unsure, still trying to survive. I thought he believed in the mission. Thought he understood what I was doing. But we broke up before the scandal broke, and it hadn't been friendly. He was bitter, petty, and apparently he'd kept access to one of my old cloud backups. He'd taken that ledger. Maybe to make money. Maybe to burn me. Either way, the donor was coming for blood now, not just civil but criminal if he could spin it right. I felt the walls close in. One mistake. One file. That's all it takes to flip a righteous mission into a personal scandal. I needed to make sure no one could use it against me again. I spent weeks trying to clean up the mess. First, I shut down every old account, scrubbed every server, replaced hardware, even wiped the safe deposit drives. I hired a tech security firm to audit everything. I burned thousands fixing what one file had opened up. But it wasn't enough. The donor's lawyer was aggressive. He filed a complaint with the state, claimed I'd violated confidentiality laws, said I'd weaponized sensitive financial data in a personal vendetta. The media caught the scent. All it took was one article. Whistleblower hero or calculated traitor. The mysterious fall of the last Ravenscroft. I was never officially charged. There was no solid case. But that didn't matter. My name became a question mark. Donors stopped answering our calls. One major grant pulled out without explanation. Volunteers grew distant. We lost 2 staffers in 1 week. And the kids, the ones we helped, they didn't understand why their reading program hours got cut. That's what gutted me most. I tried to cut down a tree full of poison, but it dropped branches everywhere. The nonprofit board called a vote. They said I had to take a leave of absence until the public scrutiny died down. They called it temporary, said it wasn't about trust, just optics. But I knew what it was. It was exile. I gave 15 years to the mission, not just revenge but real work. Real impact. I showed up. I built something. I stayed small and quiet and let them call the shots because I believed in the goal. But now that the fire I'd started had licked the edges of their house too, they wanted me gone. I walked out without saying a word. No fight. No tears. I just left. Heart attack. Alone. In a rental apartment 3 towns over. The estate had been seized for back taxes, and no family member claimed the body right away. I think I was the only one who cried. Not because I missed her, but because I realized she died believing she was the victim. She never saw the truth. Not really. She changed her last name. Said it was for privacy. But everyone knew why. She sold her art collection and started over in a quiet New Hampshire town. She sends me postcards sometimes. Never with a return address. I don't answer. He failed. Badly. They dug up everything. Even a college essay he'd plagiarized. His campaign lasted 3 weeks before he dropped out for personal reasons. He works in real estate now, selling houses he could have once bought for fun. Last I heard, she was somewhere in Nevada, bartending under a different name. I still don't know how much damage she caused. But I hope she's found peace. Or at least quiet. I still live in Charleston. Different part of town now. Smaller place. No plaques. No portraits. No visitors. The nonprofit survives. Barely. I handed it off to someone younger, cleaner, untainted. I meet with her sometimes. She's doing good work. Better than I ever could with all that family baggage dragging behind me. People still whisper when they hear my name. Some call me brave. Some call me a traitor. A few think I did what had to be done. But I don't tell this story for them. I tell it because somewhere out there, someone's sitting in a room like I was, holding a glass of cheap wine while people laugh at them. Someone is swallowing the burn in their chest, smiling through the sting, pretending it doesn't matter. I want them to know something. Does matter. But you don't have to scream to win. You just have to survive long enough to find the cracks. And when you do, pry them open. And never look back.